Good morning, bakers. Today I'm going to show you how to make bagels. More specifically, I'm going to make Asiago cheese bagels because everybody loves cheese. So I'm going to get started very simply by activating my yeast. So I have some water here. Let me bring it down. I have some water, some sugar, and some yeast. So my water I have warmed up quickly in the microwave. And I want it somewhere between 90 and 100, no more than 110 degrees. Let's see where I am. Yep, and I'm right at 92 degrees. That's perfect. So I'm going to add my yeast and my sugar, and I'm going to let that activate. I'm going to stir them together. Make sure it's all nice and stirred together. And then I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. That's just going to get the yeast started, and the sugar is going to help with that. It's also going to be good insurance for me because my yeast is actually pretty old. I've kept it in the fridge, so it should last, but it's good insurance before we get to the next steps that my yeast is still alive. So we're going to leave this like this and come back in about 10 minutes, and it should be nice and poofy. So it's been 10 minutes, and hopefully you can see how nice and fluffy. See that whole like pale layer at the top? That's all this really nice fuzz. That's not the right word, fluff. So you can see it's got nice and foamy. That's exactly what we're looking for. So yay, my yeast isn't too old. Very exciting. All right, so it's time to make our dough. So I've got my flour and my salt in this bowl, and I'm going to stir them together. I never want to add salt in high concentration to my yeast because salt in high concentration can kill our yeast. So I want to make sure that my salt is like evenly spread out in my flour so it's not going to kill it, because that would be really, really sad. And then I'm going to pour this in. Make sure I get all of it. I definitely want all of that stuff. Don't want to miss out on any of the yeast. And then I'm going to get in there with my hands because I'm actually going to need all this with my hands. You can do this with a mixer, but today I'm going to use my hands. So I'm going to mix it in my bowl until it turns into a pretty shaggy dough. Alright, just keep mixing it together until most of that flour is incorporated. I'll take just a second. I probably should have a little bit of a bigger bowl for this. That's okay. I'll make it work. You're gonna find this pretty stiff dough for a bagel. Alright, when you got to the point where it's pretty shaggy, but there's a little bit of flour on the bottom of the bowl, we're going to turn it out onto our table. Make sure, obviously, your table is nice and clean. We actually don't want to have any flour on the table. If we get too much flour, we're actually going to work it in. And with this is already pretty stiff dough, we don't want to add any extra flour. All right, and then we're going to knead. So our kneading process is important for developing gluten. So let me show you that technique. So you're going to take the palm of your hand. See if I get you back in the camera. There you go. And I'm going to push away from me with the palm of my hand while turning. And then I'm going to pull it back on itself. So I push while turning, pull it back on itself. Push while turning, put it back. So I'm going to do this process for probably somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. You're going to see it's going to go from a pretty shaggy dough to actually a really smooth dough. Again, you could do this in your mixer. For stiffer doughs, it's a little harder on your mixer, so I like to do it by hand. And also, I know that lots of you at home don't have mixers, so this is a way that you can make bagels without actually needing a mixer. And you can already see just very quickly it's starting to come way more together than it was. So I'm going to keep going through my kneading process until it's nice and smooth. So I'm about halfway kneading my dough, and hopefully you can see that it's definitely starting to come together. The gluten's a lot stronger. It still looks a little shaggy, but it's way better than it looked 5 minutes ago. So I probably got another 5 minutes left, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so my dough is nice and smooth on top, so that's a great indication that I've got enough gluten worked in it, and it did take me a very, very long time to knead. So this would be a really great thing to do if you had some family to help you kind of take turns. It'd be a really great way to spend some time. So I'm just gonna do one quick knead, and I'm gonna kind of pull the sides under to create a seam underneath, and then I'm going to take my hands, and with the bottom parts of my hand I'm going to turn and pull them under. We're just going to create a nice tight ball. So for my next step, when I let this bread rise, I'm going to be able to clearly see how much it's risen. All right, so I'm going to take a bowl, I'm going to lightly oil it. Ooh. I don't want a heavy coat, and this is just gonna help so it doesn't stick. And then I'm gonna take it, put it pretty side in first, so there's a coat on top. Then turn it around, kind of shake him around so he gets oil coated all around. I'm gonna cover him with a damp cloth, and then I'm gonna let him rise until he is doubled in size, which is gonna take a while, and it very much depends on how hot or how cold your house is. At school, you know, we have our proof boxes, so we have a little bit more of a controlled environment, but here my house is pretty cold, so it's probably gonna take a little while, but I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's doubled. All right, time to check on our dough, and yay, it has doubled, which is awesome. Not really sure how long it took. I went and had lunch and did some laundry and just came back and checked on it periodically. Again, it's pretty important to not think about the time, but to think about the size difference. Now we're gonna punch the dough. As you can see, we have some peeking out irregular bubbles. So by punching the dough, we're gonna pop those bubbles and make sure all of our bubbles are nice and regular. So I'm gonna take my fist and gently, I wonder if you could hear that. It sounded funny, but just gonna pump it all through. You can see lots of air coming out. That's exactly what I want. Now I'm gonna very lightly flour my table. Grab my dough. See another couple air bubbles I'll knock out real quick. And now I'm gonna cut it into 8 equal pieces. If I was doing this in the industry, I would scale them all out, but I know a lot of you don't have scales at home, so I'm just gonna do it by eye. So I'm gonna grab my bench scraper, and this could be a knife. If you don't have a bench scraper, I would just make sure you're doing it not on your tabletop, on a cutting board if you're using a knife. So I'm gonna go in half first. Each of those halves go in half. So now I have 4. And now each of those in half. Found another bubble. And that'll give me 8 pieces. So now I'm gonna pre-shape them So I'm gonna start with one, and I'm gonna take the sides and I'm gonna, well, first I like to pick which is the prettier side. That one looks prettier. So I'm gonna take the sides, I'm gonna pull them in to the circle to make it look really ugly on this side, but then if I flip it over, it's nice and smooth. So then I'm gonna take my hand and I'm gonna cup it, and using right here and right here in my hand, I'm gonna push down hard, and what I'm doing is I'm using these sides of my hands to kind of push underneath, and that's what's gonna create my little ball. Now you wanna make sure you actually don't have any flour when you're trying to do that, because if you have flour there, it's actually gonna slide. You kind of want it to stick a little bit, or it won't really shape very well. As I roll these out, I'm gonna put them in a particular order, because now this one is starting to rest and this one's not resting yet. So when I go to do my final shape, I wanna grab the most rested one first and go from there. So I'm gonna get all of these into balls, and then I'm gonna let them sit for about 10 minutes just to relax a little bit, and then I'm gonna do the final shape. It's been about 10 minutes, so you can see they've actually proofed a little bit, got a little bit bigger, which is great, but they've already also relaxed, which is good too. So I'm gonna take very lightly floured finger and thumb. I'm gonna pick up the first one I shaped, and I'm gonna try to like stick a hole through both sides with my thumb and with my finger. So I'm just gonna pinch both sides until I get that hole. And then I'm gonna see if I can ease 2 fingers in, and then I'm gonna rotate it like that, stretching it out until I get an inch, about an inch size hole. I don't really want it bigger than that. It's gonna grow a little bit more to fill in that hole, but I don't want it to be like a giant hole either. So I know that on my thumb, from about my tip to here is about an inch, so I'm gonna go a little bit more. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing, pinch all the way through, pinch, pinch. Stick both of my pointer fingers, stretch it out, check the size, and I'm gonna do that for all of them. Okay, so our bagels have rested a little bit. Meanwhile, I've gotten some water on to boil. And we're actually gonna boil these bagels. And that's what's gonna give it that characteristic chew on the outside. If you don't boil your bagels and you just put them in the oven right now like they are, you'll get kind of like a crusty like you would with like a French bread, which is not what we're looking for. We want it to be nice and chewy. So we wanna put them in gently. And you want to make sure they're not like double stacked on each other. They have plenty of room to move around. And you want to go quick. So I'm only going to put 4. And I'm actually only going to bake 4 today because I want to show you the difference. But very important the amount of time. So I'm going to start my timer. And they're going to go for 1 minute on each side. And again, as it boils, the starch is actually going to gelatinize, and it's going to create that really awesome chew that we love so much about bagels. It's going to help make sure the inside stays kind of dense like bagels are. If we didn't do this stuff, the yeast would expand for a lot longer in the oven. This is actually going to kill some of the yeast on the outside, so these aren't going to expand quite as much as some breads might. But don't worry, they'll definitely still expand. You can kind of see some of the holes are filling in this minute. So we've got about 20 seconds left, and then I'm gonna flip them over and boil them rather for 1 minute on the other side. All right, so it's been a minute, so I'm taking them out of the boiling water, and I'm trying to shake off as much water as I can. You wanna make sure you're using some sort of slotted spoon. All right, so now I'm going to give them a nice egg wash. so they get this nice deep brown color. Pretty important to them looking delicious, and mine will probably get like a really nice gold because of, I keep saying this in all my videos, because of my brother's awesome really deeply yellow eggs. So you can probably see hopefully just how yellow this is. And you could leave them plain if you wanted, but why would you do that? There's lots of different types of bagels. There's sweet bagels, poppy seed, sesame seed, cinnamon sugar. You know, you could do this with any kind of topping you want, but I like cheese because, well, cheese is my favorite food. So once I got them all nice and egg washed, even on the sides, coming lots of nice color, I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle on some cheese. And I don't want too much on the pan because I want it all on my bagel. And that's my oven ready, which is very exciting. So I'm gonna bake half of these today, and then I'm gonna put the other half in the refrigerator to allow them to ferment overnight. So I wanna show you kind of like how different they're gonna be. I won't boil them until I'm ready to bake them. But that's kind of like a nice way if you want bagels in the morning, which most people do eat bagels in the morning. It's kind of nice to do it that way so you don't have to do all this stuff the day of. A lot of bakeries, you know, the bakers wake up crazy early. They start at 3 in the morning to make sure your bagels are all ready for you. But at home, you probably don't want to do that. I imagine a lot of you, especially living in quarantine, are waking up even later than you normally would. So this will give you a way to make them if you want them for an afternoon snack, like this is going to be our dinner tonight, or if you want them for breakfast. So they're going to go into a 425-degree oven, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're done. So I'm at the end of day 1 with my bagels, and my first batch just came out of the oven. Ooh. Loving all this crusty cheese on top, and you see like I kind of filled in the hole, so some of them still have a little bit of their hole showing, but I love it when the cheese gets really crusty in there. So now that these are baked and they've cooled a little bit, I'm going to show you my favorite way to eat bagels. Let me bring it up close for that. So my favorite way to eat a bagel is called bagels and lox. Lox, L-O-X, is a Yiddish word meaning brined salmon. It's a little hard to find lox, so I'm actually going to just use smoked salmon because you can buy that at the grocery store. But I'm going to split it open. It's nice and chewy in there. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm actually taking this on a picnic, so I'm not going to heat it, but I like mine toasted. It's not traditional toasted, but I like it toasted. But I'm taking this on a picnic, so it's not really worth toasting because it'll be cold by the time I get there. I guess it'd still be a little crisper, but that's all right. It's not really worth it. So for bagels and lox, traditionally, you put tons of cream cheese on there. And this is just cream cheese that I've had sitting out, so it's a little bit softer. You can also use whipped cream cheese, that's fine too. And then I'm gonna grab my smoked salmon. So this is kind of the package it looks like. So this has been cold smoked, not hot smoked. So it has a little bit of different texture than regular cooked salmon because it's been cold smoked and brined. And it's delicious. This particular packet comes with different versions. I've actually never had this packet, but looked interesting, so I thought I'd try it. And I forgot to read on the package before I threw it away what the differences are, but that's all right. So I'm gonna load mine up with lots of salmon, and I like to kind of break mine up into little pieces, so then when I eat my sandwich, it's a little bit easier. I also like a lot of salmon. Get it all loaded up. Yes, all about that. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands before I touch anything else. I'll be right back. All right, now for my last touches, I'm gonna add some red onion, and I already have some sliced up. I often have just sliced onion ready to go in my fridge for lots of things, salads or sandwiches, stuff like that. It's kind of nice to have them all sliced. I like to put my onions in cold water for a little while and then rinse them off, and that kind of helps get rid of that really harsh kind of onion flavor. And I really, really like onions. So that's a really common thing with bagels and lox. Some other common things might be cucumber, or sometimes people do tomato. I really like tomato, but it's not tomato season, and I really don't like tomatoes outside of tomato season, so I'm not gonna put tomatoes on mine today. But I am gonna put capers, which is very traditional. So I don't know if you've ever heard of capers. So these are capers. I don't know how well you can see them, but capers are actually little flower buds that they salt and pickle. So if you actually ate them straight off the bush, they're super, super bitter, but they go through this pickling and process with lots and lots of salt, and they become like these little bursts of salty vinegar, which, you know, sometimes these things don't sound that great out loud, but in combination with the bagels and lox, the creaminess, because there's a lot of fat, right? Salmon has a lot of fat, cream cheese has a lot of fat, so that salty acidity really pairs well. Kind of how like lemon pairs well with fish. It's a really great pairing. And then I'm gonna add some dill on top. Some people will do it kind of rustic and bigger pieces, and this dill may have seen better days, but that's okay. It's not worth going to the store right now, especially because I know that this dill came from the farmer's market, so I know it's really good quality, and less hands touched it than in the grocery store. It's definitely something that's all on our minds right now with while we're eating our food. And dill is just going to give it this nice freshness, this nice kind of brightness. Let me take that stem off. And there you go. So you can eat it, you can do open face, or you can make it into a sandwich, whatever you want. Mine's going to be a sandwich today. But hopefully you can see just how pretty this is. Now you could eat this just plain with cream cheese or whatever you want. Butter, a lot of people like butter on bagels, but this is my dream bagel sandwich. So this is gonna be my dinner tonight with a little side salad. I'm very excited about it. Tomorrow, I'm gonna bake off the bagels that have been fermenting in the refrigerator, and we'll talk about differences with that tomorrow. So I want to show you just a little quick comparison between the two bagels. So this bagel I baked the same day I made the dough, and this bagel I baked this morning. So we can take a look, and it looks like this one got a little bit more rise, a little bit taller. Similar color though, texture looks about the same. So let's look on the inside and see what our crumb structure looks like. So I cut in, and you can actually see they're still pretty similar, so they still have a really tight crumb to them. This one's got a little bit more opening, especially on the outsides than this one, but they're actually really similar. So that's kind of nice. This one's a little bit tighter. You can see just in the center, it's just a little bit tighter than this one, but it's still got a really nice, both of them still have a really nice chew, which is really great. So good news, you can get your dough made ahead of time, and then the day before, and then bake it first thing in the morning, and your bagels will still be awesome. In fact, maybe even a little bit better. So we're gonna do the same experiment. We have 2 more bagels to bake, and we're gonna see if we can split this up and bake it for 2 different mornings. So stay tuned for that.